Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Tower Yoga podcast. Take a breath with me. A full inhale and an easy exhale. Nice. Today, I want to explore or continue to explore two short but powerful lines from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Teachings that describe what happens when the mind is still and what happens when it isn't still. If you missed the last episode, then I would go back and to listen to that. It's just kind of an intro of getting into the Yoga Sutras, and we go over the first 1.1 and 1.2. And I'll do a little kind of recap because it actually has been a minute since we released that last episode. But the first two and now 1.3, 1.4, they capture the essence of yoga and the fact that yoga really happens in the now. In that last episode, talked about how there's so many different translations to study, and I kind of like to collect the Yoga Sutras at this point and study from all the different perspectives and teachers. One that I'll be reading from today is called Tantra of the Yoga Sutras. It's from Alan Finger, and I'll briefly go through just to kind of recap 1.1 and 1.2 and then continue on into 3 and 4. Get into it. In the now, yoga happens. Yoga is the experience we have when all vritti, or chatter in the mind, the movement arising in our consciousness, is stilled. Then we experience the true essence of consciousness, which is pure awareness in the now. But when there's movement in our consciousness, the mind tends to identify with the images that it creates. Alan Finger, after, translating from the Sanskrit, the language of yoga, into the English, also gives some commentary. And in his commentary, he sort of talks about how, like when we go to a movie and we see the images on the screen, sometimes, especially if it's a really good movie, right? We almost forget that we are watching a movie. We start to really kind of like identify with the main characters and their plight or whatever they're going through. And we get into it, forgetting that, oh, yeah, these are images on a screen. It's not necessarily the truth or real life, unless it's a documentary, I guess. But you know what I mean? It's sort of mistaking the images or the other characters for who we are. So, in simple words, Patanjali is telling us that when the mind is quiet, when we're not caught up in our thoughts, in our reactions, our stories, we experience ourselves as we truly are. That might be present. It's definitely whole, aware, like awareness itself. But when our mind is busy or restless, we lose that connection and we start to identify with whatever the mind is doing. So we become the anxiety, we become the doubt, we become the ambition, we become the comparison. And it's a product of a lot of things, but even a product of our language. I think I still remember being at kirtan with Sean Johnson. He's from Sean Johnson and the Wild Lotus Band. He sings devotional bhakti or like yoga music and chanting. His whole band does. And he is of Irish lineage. And he was saying how it really strikes him whenever he is there in Ireland that he notices people, like the way that things would be translated is more like sadness is with me, right? Rather than like, I am sad and like identifying with it. And he mentioned something like that, like so briefly in a little lecture before Kirtan, but it really struck me. We really identify with that. Like, I am, fill in the blank rather than that's something that I'm experiencing. So essentially, we like forget that we're more than all of that. This is something that my sense is every single one of us, all of you listening and myself, like we know this so intimately. Like think about how your sense of self can shift throughout just one day, any given day. When someone praises you, or gives you a compliment, well, you might feel awkward about that. But when you get praise, essentially, you feel good. When you're criticized, you shrink or you get mad. We're at the whims of like these circumstances and these opinions of other people. So when you're stressed, it feels like you are stress itself. When you're calm, you might just feel like a completely different person. So according to yoga, the deeper self, which is known as the seer, right? The one within who knows, doesn't actually ever change. It's a constant. So like the sky behind the clouds, it's just that our awareness becomes covered by the movement of the mind. So the practice of yoga is, whether, it's on the mat or beyond it, is a process of returning or remembering. And in fact, there is a Buddhist scholar Robert Thurman, who I think, like later in life was saying that with meditation, he's like, I don't even call it meditation anymore. I call it remembering. And that like strikes me, when I go to my meditation seat, not in an extractive way or a way where I'm like, I need to do something to get something. When I go, because it's like, I want to sit down and give myself the time to drop and release whatever it is that's in the way that's making me forget the important thing, right? Of like, who I am, when I come to it more of like in a humble way to like sit down and release rather than like sit down and try to like accumulate or like gain, right? Then that there is something that is so, there's like a homecoming feeling about it. And it's not about like doing more to gain something. It's actually like doing less just to remember and to return. Every time that we pause, we consciously breathe and become aware of the moment we're in, the body that we're in, we glimpse our true nature again. You might even feel it right now. Take another breath. Inhale. And let a sigh or something go out your mouth. Notice your mind. Notice what your mind's doing. Its movements, its chatters, its stories or lack thereof. And then notice the one who's watching all of that, that part of you that is unchanging and has been from the time you were really, really little. Of course, there's been so much that's shifted and changed in your life. Years and decades have gone. Relationships maybe have come and gone. Phases and stages have come and gone. And while there's aspects and part of you that have changed, there, I wonder, there might be, I feel this to be true. You might feel this to be true too, that there's a core part of you, you might even think of it as like your center, that's never changed, that's been constant, that's been witnessing you through the growth and the shift and the evolution. I wonder if you feel that, if you've connected with that. It's what's called a lot of times in the practice of yoga, the witness, the quiet witness. That's you. You are the seer. You are awareness itself. When you catch yourself tangled in thought, caught up in reaction or emotion, in the charge of it, see if you can step back just a little, not to push whatever you're feeling away, but to remember, I am the one who was aware of this. So it's like saying, I, this, this emotion or this story is really with me. It's, a good one, but I'm the one who's aware of it, not necessarily simply the one who's in it. That simple recognition, that shift from identification to awareness is the return to your true nature. It's what you connect with when you aren't caught up in the namification, identification, whatever box it is that you feel you've been put in or have put yourself in. So as you move through your day, notice when your mind pulls you into its swirl, when you start to believe that you are what you think and what you feel. And take a moment to come back. Come back to your breath, come back to your body, to that quiet witnessing presence that's always been there. That is the heart of Sutra 1.3 and 1.4 from just one perspective. That's mine. It's very limited and it's only one, but here I am. More so just wanting to let this be a conversation starter, maybe to be inspiration to reflect for introspection and self-inquiry. In no way am I saying from this one translation and from my one perspective, like this is the way. This is a very ancient practice. These sutras are, and this wisdom is very simple yet complex. And yeah, I would never, I would hope that I wouldn't come forward, and come across with some kind of hubris of being like, I know, and this is the translation, and this is exactly what it's saying and meaning. I think that there's just so much room for interpretation, of course, and we have to make things personal in order to absorb it. But there are these sutras written down, and there are so many different translations and commentary, I think, because, um, yeah, it we have to make them personal in order for them to work. But I digress. The heart of the Yoga Sutra 1.3 and 1.4 is really about the dance between forgetting and remembering, between being lost in the sauce, being lost in the mind, and then returning to the self beneath it. When the mind is still, we rest in our true nature. When it's restless, we identify with its movements. Both are part of being human, and both can be met with awareness. May your practice, both on the mat and in your life, be a gentle return to that still place within. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, be well and keep coming home to yourself.